Okay,
Here we go. Let it be.
very good. So, welcome everyone. I'm sure there's probably going to be some more people to come in. Tonight, we have the great pleasure of hearing from Barry Hart. And I'm so happy to introduce Barry Hart as our featured artist of February 2025. Besides being a Leo Marchutz School summer faculty member, now teaching peace building in the arts and a member of our board of directors, Barry is Professor Emeritus of Trauma, Identity, and Conflict Studies in the Center for Justice and Peace Building at Eastern Mennonite University. Barry first came to Axe in the fall and spring of 1970-71 and was a student of Leo Marchutz, William Wayman, and Sam Bjorklund. He returned to Axe in 1973 to work at the Leo Marchutz School, mainly as the driver of the old police van. His career then took him into the field of peace building, where he has conducted workshops on peace building, psychosocial trauma recovery, and reconciliation for religious and secular leaders in Northern Ireland, Libya, Liberia, Sierra Leone, the Ivory Coast, Uganda, Burundi, and South Africa, and other places. So I think it's going to be wonderful to hear from Barry tonight to talk to us about the relationship between peace building and the arts. So take it away, Barry.
Hey, thank you, Alan. Thank you very much. It's really wonderful to see all of you. I know many of you, and I'm thankful that you're here. I'm very happy to have an opportunity to talk about peace building in the arts. And I just want to acknowledge, too, my time with Leo Marchutz and William Wayman and Sam Bjorklund 50 plus years ago actually set me on a path that was unique for me and an experience that led me to the peace building field. And it was a really kind of wonderful twist of fate to draw on Bob Dylan that led me back to X and the Marchutz School about 3 years ago now. And once there, I discovered and began in the process of exploring how peace building in the arts could be better integrated. I say better integrated because peace building has used the arts over the years, but I don't feel it's been a real partnership, and I wanted to explore that a little bit more. And so developed a short course within the summer program at the Marchutz School to explore music, dance, theater, and the visual arts and their relationship to social change. And obviously, there are other arts, sculpture, literature, film, cinema, and so forth. But I didn't have time to do all of those, and my expertise is not in those areas necessarily. So today, due to time, I want to just talk about music and peace building. And happily, we have Dr. Benjamin Berge online here with us, who is an expert in this area, and the visual arts, because that's what the Marchutz School is about, painting and drawing in nature, painting motifs in different venues, cityscapes, portraiture, and so forth, but more particularly as it relates to landscape painting. So let me get started here. Many years ago, I studied drumming in Liberia, West Africa. And the drumming master told me on the first day, "You already know how to drum." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" Of course, some of you know this answer. "You have a heart, don't you?" he said. And this just reminded me that at the beginning of the Marchutz summer program every year, Alan Roberts, who just spoke to us, says on the first day, "You are now artist." And for me, this is a saying, now you have realized that you are artist and always have been, just like I was always a drummer. You have eyes to see and a heart to guide you. And of course, I had to say to myself 3 years ago when I started that I am an artist and embody this reality. After a long hiatus of 50 plus years of doing art in Aix-en-Provence, in the Papeterie Michel is where I first experienced Leo and Billy and Sam. And I needed to heed Hilary Stein, who's a wonderful Marchutz faculty member, when she wrote, "Our task as artists is to continually search, to shed our many layers that inhibit us from seeing." And boy, did I have many layers that have been built up over those years. So I began to peel away some of the inhibitions of doing art, and I want to thank Hilary for calling me to task on that. So I want to start today by showing you some of the things that I've drawn, one painting that I did, just to kind of get us into this understanding of my understanding of what art is and how we see art as a element in the whole peace building and social change milieu. I had to kind of affirm a strong feeling as well when I first started that I was bringing peace building to this context of the art school. And I wanted to find out how the arts and peace building work more fully together. Because for me, the underlying principles and values are really very similar, not perfectly the same, but it's about relationships. It's about harmonies. It's about reconciling certain things to each other, people. And also in the peace building field, I pay close attention to our relationships, not only to each other, which we need to build bridges across various divisions that people have, but also to nature. That is nature that sustains all of us. So I saw this connection kind of straight away, and I wanted to more fully develop that connection. As many of you know, at the Marchutz School, we quote unquote copy the masters. Now, for some people that aren't aware of what that means in that context, it's not just line by line copying what we see with a pencil or with a paintbrush or something like that. It's not that iron wire that some of us talk about. Really about seeing how the masters used shadow and light, how they saw volume and form. And so in copying the masters, we were actually learning from them how they saw a motif, whatever it might be. And what I find fascinating and interesting is that these masters also copied from masters before them, on and on and on. So this concept of copy sounds kind of strange, but it actually has deep meaning in terms of us actually starting to see and to see deeply. So I'll just show briefly, if I can get them up here, some of the things that I drew, I copied, and some originals as well. And let me see if I can share that. Oh yes, it's going to be an issue, I see. All right, thought I could do this easily enough.
Share screen, Barry.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing my I'm not seeing. Second. Not seeing my. Guess you can't do that, can you, Alan?
Not yet. You want to put your image up on your screen and then share your screen.
Well, the image is up there, but I can't get to the share button for some reason.
Uh, that's going to share my screen. So down at the bottom, do you have a bottom that says participants chat, react, share?
Just a minute. I think I've got it now.
Oops.
You see it now, right?
Yeah. Good.
Okay. All right. A little technical difficulty there, but let me just go through these from the top. So again, this concept of copying is real, and Alan has us do this for the purpose of understanding what the masters have done. And I'm not sure where this comes from. Alan might be able to say, but it's just the idea of, quickly looking, again, not doing a line by line copy, but seeing the whole and then finding the elements within that whole and putting them together. So when one does this sort of thing, you're all over the paper. You're not just doing line by line in one section of the piece or the other. Again, this is just another figure. I think this is hanging on the wall of the studio in X. Just trying to capture how the head sits on the shoulder, how and I don't know if others on this call have difficulties with noses, but I certainly do. And I thought I captured the nose fairly well on this one. Started to do some self-portrait types of things. And then some cityscapes. Those of you who have been in X might recognize this. This isn't a copy, this is me in the street thinking how Leo used to go around X, and not in the height of summer where all the tourists are, but the ability to actually see, this is the Quatre Dauphins in X, and to see it and to render it in basic strokes, hopefully to capture the whole, trying to capture what you're seeing. And you may recognize this. It's a copy of Leo's Christ from the book of Luke. And this is in the church in the village of Saint-Marc, Jean-Magard, in a place not too far from Aix-en-Provence. Billy and I used to go to this chapel to hear Père Paul de Madeleine, a Benedictine monk, who gave mass there each Sunday. And above the altar were 3 of Leo's paintings, lithographs originally, and then made into these large paintings. And the monk himself was an amazing individual, and he loved Leo's works. And so I got the key from the mairie and went into the chapel. So I was there by myself. It's no longer, I don't think, used as a church. I'm not sure. But there were a number of Leo's works. And I just had, in that quiet time, that silence, time to look at his works in a way that I hadn't seen them before. And I quickly did this piece. And feel like one since it captured what Leo had done. Many of you know the studio in the country. We have a studio in Aix, in the central part of Aix, but this is out in the countryside, close to Mont-Saint-Victoire. Actually, right behind what you're looking at here is the mountain. And again, quickly trying to capture what one is seeing, the structure itself, some of the trees and shrubbery and so forth. So my daughter and I actually painted this together. She was doing a stage in Berlin. She's a dancer, and she came down for a week a couple of summers ago to Aix. And I had started this one, but she came in and I don't know, I just felt she had a great eye for color and balance, volume and form. And so I was really thankful that we could do this together. And this is a drawing I did related to Mont-Saint-Victoire. I feel a little guilty because when I think of how Leo used just so few strokes and swirls and circles and so forth, and thinking about that and just trying to render a mountain that way was both interesting, but I realized Leo had spent decades and decades and decades to get to a place where he could do much better than this, but rendering the mountain in a unique way with so few lines reflecting light and shadow. I think that's all I'm going to show you today. I don't have a great body of work, but I think the fact that I've attempted to start to draw and paint again, as I did many, many, many years ago, was really helpful in terms of me honoring this deep scene that's necessary to paint and draw in a way that the Marchutz School both teaches and practices. I'm going to stop sharing and go to another document here. Okay. Sorry for the confusion here. So, some background related to this interface of relationship between the art and peace or peace building. Another Leo Tolstoy, said, without art, humanity could not exist. And it's purported to say, John Galtung said, he's noted as a godfather of modern peace studies, it's purported that he said, good art is like good peace. So what is good art? I think many of you on this call know that the answer to this, it's the quality of the unity of the content and form, an inherent set of relationships and values. And really, for me, that's what peace building is too, an inherent set of relationships and values. Art helps the human spirit see and feel and hear the essential in nature. And my belief, art helps us experience other human beings in unique ways as well. So art helps us see beyond ourselves. We're always so focused on ourselves, but art is one means for us to move beyond ourselves. So there's much more to say about what good art is, but what is good peace? And it's not just the absence of war, but it's a profound process that restores, or what I like to call rebonds, relationships so that they are just and meaningful in terms of respecting and honoring the humanity and dignity of others, while in the process honoring our own dignity and our own humanity. Donna Hicks, who's a peace builder and a psychologist from Harvard, has written a number of books on dignity. She says on page 6 of her first book, I remember this very clearly, that dignity is a feeling of inherent value and worth. Good peace, and I think that's within good peace, dignity is a high quality and value. And good peace also helps us build systems and structures to protect and enhance life, our common humanity, and our common dignity. Leo Marchutz said, and Alan repeats this quite often, our eye through some form of happy incapacity keeps us from seeing the infinity of details. It helps the spirit see the essential. And I think both peace building and the arts, we need to see and feel, and I would add here, what is essential. That is how we deal with complexity in both of these métiers, within the art and within peace building, because they're both complex. And if the eye is capturing the details, the essentials, and not the large picture overall, we can render the essentials that form the detail. And in peace building, it's also true. We need to see the large picture, but we have to see who the actors are within the picture and how they relate to each other. And I think we do a mapping process that helps us do that. Hilary Stein, I mentioned her before, wonderful person and a real wise individual, talks about deep seeing. That is, seeing these essentials that I've been talking about, seeing the essential in the whole and the relationship, again, this concept of relationship of the essential elements to the whole. For me, this is also true in peace building. It requires the peace builder to see who the people are they are engaging, their context, their culture, along with seeing what powers are there that are manipulating these relationships and negating many aspects of their culture. But we also have to see the power in the people themselves, because that's where the true power lies and brings or builds a bridge across the divisions. I think in the United States today, we need to have the power of the people, an old phrase, help bridge some of these divisions that we're experiencing now. And some of that's happening. So deep seeing and listening in peace building are critical to knowing about the broken bonds between people and how the people themselves can restore those bonds. Just what I was talking about. So seeing and listening for the essential highly inform the artist and the peace builder and lead to the critical question, who am I in this transformational process of creating art and building peace? I think that's really an essential aspect. The importance of becoming self-reflective, discerning practitioners, if you like, within our crafts, within our particular métiers. And I would argue and hope for a deeper understanding across those métiers. So we would understand what the values and principles are of each of the crafts and how they come together and how they can work together. So reflectivism, if you like, is the act of pondering the significance of who we are and how we see and feel about what is happening around us. And in doing this deep reflection, I think we're almost compelled to act in some shape or form. It may be through our art, it may be through our activities and demonstrating on the ground or the capital of the United States or wherever. But I really believe we're compelled to do that as we deeply reflect on who we are and what our particular frameworks or métiers mean to us. At one level, we can't help but act because we actually see deeply what is happening around us. And nature informs us in this scene, and other people inform us in this scene. We can just roll up and be a ball in the corner of the room, or we can do something meaningful to bring about small but significant changes in the larger process of social change. So let me talk a little bit about music and peace building. And certainly, Ben, if you want to jump in here, please do. When we think of good art, I'm reminded of what the highly talented orchestra and big band leader Duke Ellington said. There are two kinds of music, the good kind and the other. What we will discuss now is the former kind of music, the good kind. Of course, there's some subjectivity here, and music across the world and different cultures and so forth has different meanings for people in those settings. But I think you can basically say, even though music has been misused to cause conflict and hurt and pain and death, the good kind of music actually informs and helps transform who we are. Wolfgang Dietrich, a peace and a music scholar, says, when a person expresses herself through her voice or another sounding instrument, she initiates vibrations, which through their characteristics touch and influence the condition of those present. It is this resonance that shapes our perceptions and, as a consequence, our relationships. So these vibrations that happen between people within the music world, and I think many of us know what that means. Ben was part of something we experienced the other night as we were together as what's called Mennonite Actions. And we had some freedom songs from South Africa and the United States. And the resonance that was going on there, after we stopped singing, everybody basically cheered and celebrated. I mean, this was a room of, I don't know, 100 people, whatever the number was, because this resonance had happened to us. It changed us. We were harmonized both in our brains and in our hearts and in our breathing. And I find that incredibly powerful. So what about the resonance in the other arts? For example, the visual arts. And I'd like you to think about that, and we can talk about that in a bit. And music is a shared experience, just what I was talking about. It can create empathy towards building common ground, and eventually building social capital, eventually helping us change unjust social systems. Think about where that's happened and how some of these freedom songs that I just mentioned played a role in that. And it's interesting that these freedom songs are actually familiar tunes to people in different locations, oftentimes gospel tunes or something like that. And the words have changed to talk about freedom and justice and hope. So musical empathy, it involves the ability to emotionally understand what another person is experiencing. We stand in their shoes, if you like. And this musical empathy is the understanding of the affective and cognitive components of empathy, received through music, through the sonic quality of music, through resonance. And music taps into the brain in an incredibly important way. It taps into the parts of the brain that mirror the emotions of happiness, sadness, triumphantness, and in listening to it can release, these wonderful pleasure hormones that we're aware of, which help aid in the general empathic response. Therefore, there is a contagious side, the emotional contagious component, as well as the intellectual side of empathy that we experience through music. What about painting and drawing on the brain? What about the intellectual, cognitive, and emotional affective aspects of painting and drawing? Are both not essential to render a work of art? There are laws, as Leo Marchutz called them, that we must intellectually engage in doing art. We need to know about color and primary colors and volume and form and foreground and background and so forth. You need to know about these things. These are, at one level, the laws that we need to become aware of. They're technical at one level and they're important. But without the emotional, affective, empathic relationship with nature or with the motif that we're rendering, art in its most meaningful sense won't happen. It doesn't emerge from the canvas, as we like to say at the Marchutz School. When art doesn't happen, when it doesn't emerge from the canvas, there is no resonance between the artist and the subject, whether it's landscape or portrait or whatever it might be, a portraiture, or between the subject on the canvas and the viewer of it. So good art, if you like, has a resonance between the individual who's looking at the art and the art itself. The art, if it's not there in its best form, doesn't emerge from the canvas. It doesn't have that inner light that sparks, it speaks to our spirit, sparks our spirit, if you like. As we were at the Met in New York and we were looking at a Rembrandt, early Rembrandts and later Rembrandts. And Alan, you remember this well, and others who were there. And his rendering of himself, a self-portrait, both early in life and then very late in life, the one later in life, the inner light came forth, whereas the earlier ones were using, well, obviously, the outer light, but there was no inner light in them. So how do we get to this point in a landscape painting? And I'm focusing it because we do a lot of that at the Marchutz School. How does that in any shape or form connect to social justice issues, connect to peace building? It's art, and it's great art done well, but how does it have any meaning for peace building? We had a student 2 years ago in the summer program. Her name was Hannah Farrar, and she attempted to bring together this understanding of connecting peace building to landscape painting. And she says it's difficult to do. It must seem difficult to do. How is landscape painting radical or an act of peace building? Because she indicates, and it's understandable, we paint in solitude. So how do we have the same community, relational aspects that peace building emphasizes? Well, her premise is that we actually do. because nature is our community. And it's from nature that speaks to us in these many shapes and forms and shows us what relationship is about and what the colors that we need to use to capture these relationships and the volume, the form, and being able then to render the essentials that we're seeing. And I think that that's right. And it's still a bit of a leap, and I understand this. But I want you to think about what art, what visual art, what paintings, for example, speak to social change issues. And obviously, some things can come to mind straight away. Whether it's Picasso's Guernica or some of the other things that have been done by Goya as he painted related to the horrors of war, or even Monet and his lily ponds, and rendering them this very peaceful rendering of the lily ponds. What did that have to do? Well, he was actually deep down giving solace and recognition to those who had died in World War I. And it was his way as an artist, as a painter, to bring forth some understanding of this. Is that were considered a personal response to the horrors of war. And they served as a symbolic representation of peace and serenity amidst the devastation of war. And who else, or what else, from the painting visual arts perspective, murals and street art, the Peace Wall in Belfast, Northern Ireland, the Human Rights Mural in Los Angeles, which educates the public about human rights and promotes social justice, encouraging community engagement and activism. The works of various painters, like I've mentioned already, but would add Frida Kahlo, Mexican artist, often reflected her personal struggles and broader social issues of her time, including gender identity and post-colonialism. And I'm sure you can name a number of things as well. So let me wind up here with summarizing what we talked about, and I want to hear your perspectives on things. We've indicated a good piece is like good art, and peace speaks to both of them speak to the heart and to the brain, to the compassion of the heart and the constructions and the neural pathways of the brain. And maybe that's where art and peace building really come together. They find themselves in this interconnection, since they both speak to the whole person within her, his, or their cultural and social and environmental context. That said, I believe we can do more to bring these two forces together, not just as has been used in the past, where art has sometimes been used in peace-building processes, but actually see them as co-equals in a process of bringing about social change. And I'll talk about, in a few minutes, I'll just talk about where we're doing that in a major program I'm doing with people in Switzerland. So I developed a theory of change that we oftentimes use this if-then, if X, 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 then X, Y, and Z will occur. If we study and integrate the values and principles of peace building in the arts, and through this process begin to understand their importance to each other in bringing about transformational change in the multiple, challenging, and complex spaces we inhabit, and there are many, then We will act individually and collectively to reveal these values and principles of relationship, vision, imagination, very critical, creativity, and empathy. And then on them in ways, this will be the result, act in them in ways that will enhance human flourishing. So that's the critical piece for me that we need to consider. I've been thinking about the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts. For a long time, they've had a arts and social change perspective in the people that present there and the galleries and so forth that where they have different art displayed. And that, of course, is changing, unfortunately. But John F. Kennedy said something in October 26, 1963. He said, if sometimes our great artists have been the most critical of our society, it is because their sensitivity and their concern for justice, which must motivate any true artist, makes him or her aware that our nation falls short of its highest potentials. I see little of more importance, he says, I see little of more importance to the future of our country and our civilization than full recognition of the place of the artist. And I want to say amen to that in today's world. And as it relates to the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts, that is where the arts will die if we artists, and art has been around a long time and will continue, but we need to actually have this concern for justice that Kennedy is talking about. And as true artists, be motivated by it. And a final word. I'm working with a group in Switzerland called Co-Initiatives of Change Foundation. And we've embarked on a 3-year project called the Co-Arts and Peace Encounters. And the objective of this is really to inspire and equip and connect individuals, groups, and organizations with the skills and qualities needed to foster peace through the power of arts and dialogue. And to me, this is really where the arts and peace building are coming together. And they've taken on this theory of change that I just read to you recently. And the initial part of this 3-year journey begins in May in Switzerland, May 12th, 13th, and 14th. So we're bringing together artists and peace builders to learn from each other, sharing values and principles of our particular backgrounds and frameworks, and experiencing the deeply human and creative endeavors of both of these métiers, and to see the need for them to be in a true partnership to help bring about creative, nonviolent, and social transformation. And so if you're interested, I can share the details of that particular conference with you. So over to all of you, I'm actually keen on a couple of things that, or many things that you have to say. So please feel free. Questions, concerns, critiques, I'm very open.
Wow. Beautiful, Barry.
Yeah. Very nice.
All right. The floor is open. You just have to, if you want to ask a question or give a comment, just make sure you unmute yourself before you ask your question or start talking. A lot to talk about there.
Yeah, a lot.
Barry, I have a question.
Okay.
I'm teaching music, mostly piano and guitar, and the thing that I've been coming to in my own teaching practice is the importance of letting go of fear, and animus, and feelings of I'm not good enough, in order to release, or in releasing the barriers you were talking about, releasing the barriers to access connection to the muse. And so just like, what's the real, what's the relationship between peace building in yourself in order to gain access to art, and so that's the micro level. And then how does that relate to the macro? Just a small question.
Just a small one, right? Well, I think it's a critical question too, and that's why I talked about being reflective practitioners of our art. And we all are. And if you think about just what you're doing in teaching music and teaching something that will resonate with other people, that in itself is quite powerful. So I believe that the arts are already doing peace building, and peace building is an art in its own way. But that constant, and becoming aware of certain things. I mean, how many people are aware of this nexus between and this need for integration of peace building and the arts? I think there are many people that are aware, but how can we help more people be aware? And then when we put on a concert, or we put on, how do we take that to the next level? How do we have, after we've done a music performance, how do we have discussion and dialogue about social issues? Getting people in the same room for a concert who are at odds with each other is another story, but it's possible. And I think of the Bob Marley movie, One Love. Marley actually helped two warring politicians in Jamaica come together. He brought them on stage after a concert, and they shook hands, and it changed kind of the flow of understanding within Jamaica of relationships that had been at odds, and us-them aspects of relationship. So, it's not an overnight thing, but if we actually are intentional in reflecting on what am I doing, who am I, what are my values that undergird what I'm doing, and how do I gently, constructively, creatively, and meaningfully share those with others. And I don't know, it's a long process, but thanks for the question.
I'm going to jump in here. I have my hand raised, but I'm going to jump in.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Laura Violan. I am here in the DC area. I got to know the Marchutz School through the few courses I've taken through the Smithsonian of Nick Cruz Velleman's. So I'm here and I'm going to meet him in person next Sunday at the National Gallery of Art. He has the hour practice session on Zoom monthly, but he's visiting family here, and he's put out a notice that to join him for an hour and a half tour of the National Gallery. So I'm excited to meet him in person. But I have to say, I was at the Kennedy Center twice this week. First for the American Ballet, who did Crime and Punishment, which was an interesting program. And then the Washington Ballet. And I have to say that the Kennedy bust is still in place.
Good.
We'll see how long that lasts.
I'm very glad to hear that. I'm not very hopeful that it'll stay in place, but at the same time, we have to continue regardless, and we have to support the arts even more, and we have to honor the artists that are saying no to not performing there. Okay, any other questions or comments? I put some comments in the questions in the chat. You can look at those to see if they have meaning for you. Pauline?
First, thank you so much, Barry. Every time I hear you talk, it's grounding for me, because I think you go again at the essential that of what give kind of meaning in order to our existence, without saying it in terms of each of us particularities, but as a whole, there seems to be that's so important dimension of relationship and listening and seeing. And I wanted to hear about what you may have to say about cynicism, because I feel like our world have been plagued with cynicism for a long time, whether it is in the art or even more right now in terms of almost a dehumanizing system that is being put in place generally. So how do we fight cynicism? How do we fight fear or a cynical person? I mean,
Yeah.
not fighting the person, but finding the cynicism that they have within them that is part of their entire system of operating.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's an answer to that. A lot of people today are saying you just have to let them go their own way, but that's not building many bridges either. So what we're trying to do in this program that I've talked about it's emerging from Switzerland, we're trying to get into the international NGOs and into other organizations that are already dealing with people in conflict that are divided, and cynicism is part of that. That there'll be concerts and there'll be art performances, theater, dance, etc., that will set up an atmosphere, if you like, where people then post-conference right away, post-performance right away, will have an opportunity to come together and say, well, how did that speak to you? What did that mean? Were there any, good messages there? I mean, it doesn't have to have a message. The art itself speaks to us, but how did it speak to you? And start a dialogue and get people to actually tell their own stories. I don't like to be around a cynic, and I try not to be a cynic myself, but at the same time, this common humanity that we have, this Ubuntu, the need we have for each other to be complete, complete with each other and complete with nature. Ubuntu is a South African Bantu word that talks about this completeness. So when I walk into a room where there may be cynics, my first discipline to myself is common humanity. I need them and they need me. But that's, it's a hard question. And if we can't engage cynics or they don't want to engage us, we just need to do what we need to do to make what is right and good and just in the world, whatever that might be. Sorry, I don't have more of an answer than that.
Barry, I'm struck by the importance of just acknowledging the validity of the other person's perspective for them.
Yeah.
But then embracing them in the totality of what we're talking about.
Yeah. And again, it's not easy, but the arts help that in a way that I think we're unaware. I've talked about, the brain in harmonization and resonance and so forth. That actually happens. And so people are at a slightly different, if not an entirely different place when good art and good music and, have been experienced. And so we need to capture them in that moment with gentleness and humility and skills of peace building, dialogue, storytelling, whatever it might be. And this sounds like pie in the sky in some ways, but it's not. I mean, I've been in this field a long time and I've seen it happen. And of course, you say, well, it's not happening now. Well, it has happened in different places and it will happen again. Because I believe in this, the general goodness of people. And I know others say, well, I don't believe in that anymore, but somehow I have to kind of hold on to that and treat people with that care.
Barry, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Because before you were talking about the great masters and studying the relationships in the great masters, right? And then at one point you talked about different kinds of art, right? That we're talking about social change, right?
Right.
I'm really interested in this idea. One of the first ideas, who said there's good music and then there's the other music?
Right.
Who was that?
Duke Ellington.
Right. And then Leo Marchutz, he said, when he went into the museums to study,
Yeah.
all the paintings in there, right? He said he learned how to do it or how not to do it, right? And I'm really interested in those paintings that actually do it, because there's a lot of paintings that do. There's a lot of good music, say, and then there's a lot of the other music, right?
Right.
First of all, how the process of trying to make that good music and not the other music,
Yeah.
what is it in that process that can help in the peace studies world? Because it seems like that good music, it's really like you said, it's the form, it's the structure of the good music, it's the structure of the good art that you're gonna take over when you say you try to build peace studies systems, right? And it's that form of the system that you're trying to build between these two warring factions that make it work, which is a little bit different from just sort of, if I say, oh, I want to do it's not a bad thing to do. If I make a big painting about the war in Afghanistan, good, that brings people's attention to it, but it might be a painting about the war in Afghanistan that is the other art and not the good art.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How do you relate to that? Because you talked about relationships, how a late self-portrait by Rembrandt be a better painting to follow or to sort of get involved with in terms of sort of the peace studies idea than, say, an early Rembrandt?
Yeah. There's a lot there, Alan.
No, I'm sorry.
No, I love the question, though. I think it's essential. What are those essentials? And I guess I would speak to what we bring into this. Because peace building, there are people that know the technical aspects of peace building, kind of the logical, linear approach, and we'll go in and we'll show you how you should build peace between the people in your country. And it's a kind of arrogance that doesn't have the values and principles that we've been talking about that undergird your working with and finding the power among the people that are having the difficult times. And so it's attitudinal. And this is what I loved about Leo. I experienced a great humility there. We all have our issues and so forth, but my experience with Leo is just a wonderful humility and a care and a welcoming in to all of us as human beings. And there are other aspects of your question. There are many artists who were tasked by their governments or whatever before photographs and everything to paint the war scenes, to show the victories or whatever it was. And there are a number of artists that moved away from that and painted the horrors of war because they knew that war itself was horrible and wrong. And what is it that changed them? what kind of clicked in their minds and hearts, and allowed them to kind of reject what their masters were telling them to do, and that is glorify war and the victory of war. So yeah, I mean, it's how we approach people and how we approach humbly whatever the motif we're painting or the music we're playing or the dance we're dancing, and do it with vigor and power and humility.
Mm. Thanks, Barry.
Yeah.
Looks like lots of things repose, how would you say, is laying on the capacity of the teacher,
Uh-huh.
this, and his gift in maybe not in painting, but his gift in teaching.
Yeah.
It's a real challenge. And maybe some students will not be open to it anyway.
But Michelle, I think you're right. I think I always love the concept of guru. Teacher one moment, student the next.
Mm.
That ability to listen. And of course, when you're teaching something, you want the students to get the idea and the theory behind it or whatever, but how that takes place. And I know we've experienced great insight from students at the Marchutz School. I mean, do you cut them off and say, that's wrong? Do you just need to follow this approach? And, then you'll be an artist. Well, we don't do that, and nor should, from my perspective, any of us do that in any kind of teaching situation. It's learning from each other, honoring the fact that some of us have more information, awareness, experience, whatever it might be, and trying to convey that in a way that can be heard.
It's education.
You have to speak up.
It's education. It's education because parents can do this without teaching any art.
Yeah, it's our human connection with each other and honoring our common humanity and the need we have for each other. When my children were young, I knew these things, and it was hard sometimes, but I actually tried to practice with them what they had to teach me, and it was good. It was right. Someone else had a comment or question? Rodrigo?
Yes, a student of yours, Barry. I just want to take this opportunity to express my gratitude for being part of this conversation and express a deep acknowledgement to how you have been melting divisions. I have been pursuing a path of melting the division between spirituality and politics. And the arts appears as a unifying territory. When I hear you today speak about how peace building and the arts connect, I'm just so grateful. It seems to enhance that value of common humanity. And I was wondering, since you mentioned Frida Kahlo, what are the kind of great pieces of art that through the study and contemplation can inspire the kind of changes we need now? And how do we keep expanding that? I was very touched by your piece of art that you made with your daughter, because I am the grandson of the artist that made the library behind me, and the son of a mother who made the art collection that is also part of my surrounding, although I studied political science. So that possibility of also bringing the ancestral perspective and finding ways of collaborating within my own family to try to offer something valuable is something that also touched me very much from your presentation. And I just want to end up, since some of you are in the Americas, I'm calling in here from Mexico City. I just want to share that through also the inspiration of Barry, we will be working this year on a trust building program, how to build trust between migrants and local population, starting in Uruguay and Brazil, but trying to have this continental perspective. And the arts play a very important role. How to bring the arts, how to give space for migrants and local population to express what they're seeing, and also try to acknowledge that as part of their own expression of freedom and creativity. So I look forward also sharing in this wonderful community and express also a sense of welcoming to any of you who would like to know the not only this house but also the art gallery of Flux Lab. So thank you again, Barry, and Alan also for holding this conversation. You give me hope as a political scientist.
Well, thank you, Rodrigo.
Rodrigo, here's my beautiful gift.
Yeah, and that's it. That's the issue too, the beauty of relationships. If we can see them as that, it's a powerful mover. And I don't know about the arts today. I don't have anything in mind. I think we have to learn how to create that. But everything we do, every art piece, as I mentioned earlier, John F. Kennedy mentioned, it has a social justice component to it, and I think each one of us need to figure out really what that is. And it just might relate to, I don't know, lighting up the world somehow in a good sense.
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah.
Cole.
I don't know exactly what it is I'm trying to say, but I think, on the scale of the Marchutz School and the experience we've had, whether it's current or recent or 40, 50 years ago, as it was for me and for Barry as well, the best message I took away from the Marchutz School was something about truth, I guess. But where I'm going has more to do with not so much the individual as it does the larger scale, the macrocosm of art reaching people. And I think the art form that I'm involved with is a very personal one. It's a small scale one. And I feel that the art form today that has the best potential for doing the kinds of things that that you're talking about, Barry, relative to bridging gaps between people, might be in the form of performance art. I'm thinking particularly of JR, who is French, and he did a remarkable piece right at the border between the United States and Mexico, where it was visual, but at the same time it was kinetic in that he pushed a table underneath the border wall, or somehow he created tables on both sides of the border walls, and everyone gathered there for a kind of festival or a party or social engagement. And so I think it's important to understand that the beauty of the Marchutz School in terms of seeking visual truth, now it's changing in terms of how we can reach more people. And I think it's through larger venues such as performance art, where maybe in the Marchutz experience, you would look at performance art with a little bit of cynicism or something like that, thinking it was hocus pocus. But I don't know. I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that as things are changing, the art forms that might best do the kinds of things you're talking about in terms of bringing people together in peacekeeping may not be painting or drawing. It might be a different art form, and we should embrace that. So I think that we have to remain true, but we also have to be open to other art forms.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, my daughter's a dancer, and I know this performance art, and dance are similar and different, but she too is trying to find ways to bring into the dance world, some of these social change methods. And, it doesn't have to be direct, but it has to speak to the people's heart and brain in a way that somehow gets them to think about these issues of justice and transforming relationships. But thank you, Cole. That's spot on, I think, too. But let's not give up on the painting and drawing. I know you're not.
I don't have a choice about that.
But let's just see where we can go with that. And Alan has been gracious, and John and others, Kathleen, of saying, let's do this peace building in the arts, kind of mini course within the summer program. And, that's already something that students, are becoming aware of. How does the art experience in general, and then how does, learning about this interface between art and peace building impact their lives going forward as 20-year-olds or whatever.
Yeah,
Barry, I'd like to ask you,
speak up, Michelle.
tell me, you met Leo, you knew Leo, I guess, and what struck you with Leo?
Well, I mentioned before, his welcoming, his humility before, other people. He had strong opinions about certain things, obviously, but Tom Moran and I used to clean house for Leo and Barbara, and they'd stop us cleaning because we had to have tea at 4:30 or 5 o'clock or whatever, because of, well, that's what they did. Barbara's English background and so forth. And we just sat there and talked. I was in my early 20s, and Leo at the time was around 70 or 72. But, there wasn't a gap between ourselves, and he was just gracious. And just one time, he said to Tom and I, he said, go into the studio, you live there, go into the studio and pick out any paintings you want that I've done. And both Tom and I took two of his lithographs made into smaller paintings. And his graciousness in that sense, and not seeming to hold on to things, but just to be with others and be with the moment. And I'm mythologizing Leo a bit, probably, but those are the things I kind of remember from real experiences.
Thank you.
Wow, beautiful, Barry.
Thank you, Barry.
And just want to respond to Cole, because I don't, our school is about painting and drawing, but I think the things that Leo had to teach, I think they actually relate to all of the arts. And so I would never say that any of us think like performance art is hocus pocus. I think Leo would say as they say in France, ça dépend. There's certain performance art that may not be good art, and there's certain performance art that is good art, and maybe the same kinds of, not all performance art is really at a particular high level. The one that you're talking about down in Mexico sounds like it was like incredible, because there was relationships going on between the universal and the particular, all those things that Leo talks about. So I'm not sure it's the form of any individual art practice. There's all kinds of ways of doing it, drawing, painting, dancing, performance art, installation art, all kinds of different ways of getting it done. The question is, did you get it done?
Yeah. Good, Alan. Very,
Anyway, great. Listen, Barry, we went over a little bit. I hope you guys had a good session. We don't want to go on too long. I sit here and talk to Barry all night long, but I guess we better go. And what I'm gonna do is stop thank you so much, Barry. That was beautiful. I was just like in free time listening to you talk. It was so wonderful. And thanks everyone for coming. Beautiful, lovely questions. Great seeing everyone, especially 1978 when John wrecked the van. It wasn't me. Lovely. Let's keep on talking.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Really
Thanks,
enjoyed it.
Barry.
Recording.
Beautiful.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.